embarrassing, humiliating, shameful, upsetting. You could use any one of these terms to describe the recent effort that the Detroit Lions just had against the Baltimore Ravens. And we're going to talk about it in this quick reaction video, so stay tuned, y'all. It started with an owner who had a last name fans despised, hiring a coach that the experts thought was crazy,
But I got a plan, I swear to you.
who traded for a QB that was said to be washed up. They said the Detroit Lions would never amount to anything, that it would always be the same old Lions. But this team, our team, has a new identity, defined and expressed by the crazy head coach,
Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes, I will beat your ass.
led by the QB that nobody thought was good. Motor City Mania is in full swing and ready to start. So join the show and be prepared for kneecap biting, because Motor City Mania starts right now. Hello everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of MCM, Motor City Mania. I'm your host David T. Pike, and we're diving in right now. As always, to those that are tuning into the show and those that are coming back, I just want to say really quickly, thank you all for coming back. Thank you all for your view, your support, your patronage. To the newcomers, thank you all for giving my show a shot. Hopefully I gain your subscription. Hopefully you like the content. And as always, I just want to say God bless. Hopefully you enjoy the show, and let's dive in really quickly. So here's the thing, folks. I'm just going to say this right now. Any negative connotation you could use for this game, for this type of game, you could use, because this was an absolute embarrassment. This was what you call an ass whooping, an ass kicking. This was absolute failure by the entire Detroit Lions team. There's simply no way around it. There's simply no way else you could put this other than the fact that the Lions completely and utterly failed to play against the Baltimore Ravens today. It was just absolutely just embarrassing. There's no other way I can possibly put it. And I'm going to say this right now. We're going to talk about both sides of the ball here. But y'all know exactly where I'm going to go with this episode, probably about 75% of the time. So if y'all were thinking I was not going to bring it up, I can tell you this right now. It's going to happen. But let's talk about this from the offensive side first, because I want to save the defense for the end here, because everybody wants to talk about the defense. But I'm going to talk about the offense so that way I can get that out of the way really quickly, because this was a total failure from both sides of the football. No doubt about it. The offense could not do anything. That's why this is a total team failure, team letdown, team meltdown, really. Because let's think about it here. If you go back to that game, it was apparently obvious that the Lions' offense simply could not get into a rhythm. And that is the worst part about this game that realistically is kind of concerning for me, is that if you think about it, the Lions were completely healthy virtually across the board. The only top starters that they didn't have out there was Jonah Jackson and David Montgomery. But let's be fair here. Jonah Jackson was being replaced by freaking, Glasgow. As far as I'm concerned, Glasgow pretty much plays almost the same level as Jonah Jackson. So I didn't really consider that a loss. The only guy that wasn't out there that was huge was David Montgomery. And it's like, okay here. I've said it before, and I'll say it again now. David Montgomery is the engine that kind of gets this offense's game going, because, again, I've said it before. This is an offense that predicates itself by getting the running game going to start opening up everything else. The run sets up the pass, which then keeps the offense running altogether. And it was plainly obvious that without Montgomery, without the workhorse in there, we could not get anything going. And realistically, it affected everything. It affected our offensive line's ability to perform. It affected our wide receivers' ability to get open and also to catch passes. It affected Jared Goff's ability to play quarterback very well. Now, to be fair here, Jared Goff having a bad day today, I'm going to put that up more towards the fact that the Ravens played a really, really good defensive scheme, because let's think about this. This is the same quarterback in Jared Goff that last week against the Buccaneers, another formidable defense, also pretty much put the entire team on his shoulders, went out and won the game for the Lions against the Buccaneers, because our offensive line couldn't get anything going for the run game. Yet Jared Goff last week went out, threw 2 touchdowns, and had a great game throwing the ball 350-plus yards. So it's like, okay, as far as I'm concerned, I think that the Baltimore Ravens defense just really gave the offensive line of the Lions fits, and on top of that, we just couldn't get anything going because we were out of a rhythm. Which again, that to me kind of falls on coaching. And like I said, I'm not trying to get to the coaching aspect right now, but it's definitely coming. Because again, you have to think about it. The Lions offense, nobody was immune to how bad the offense played today. Jared Goff certainly wasn't immune. The offensive line wasn't immune. Even our best wide receiver wasn't immune. Because here's the thing. Statistically wise, Amon-Ra St. Brown, pardon me, he had a great statistical game. He had over 12 receptions. He had, I believe, 13. He had over 100 yards receiving. He had a really good game statistically. But let's be fair here. There were a couple of times Amon-Ra St. Brown dropped catches, which, let's be fair here, that is not normal for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Normally, whenever a ball gets thrown to him and it hits him in the hands, he catches the damn thing. But I can count at least 3 different times where Jared Goff got the ball to him reasonably, and he dropped the pass. There was one time over the middle, Amon-Ra caught the ball, and he had his eyes upfield, and he just dropped it after it hit him in the hands. That's something that you don't want to see from your top wide receiver. And then, let's talk about the other wide receiver, which I already know is going to get a lot of flack from this game. Jameson Williams. 2 separate times towards the end of the game, Jared Goff lays it out there for him, and JMO drops it both times. One hits him square right between the eyes in the helmet, and the other one hits him at the hands near the goal line, and he drops it both times. And then, let's also be fair here. The one interception that Jared Goff had, JMO was running a route completely different. And here's the thing. Compared to who I think was on the right page, I would say Jared Goff was, and JMO ran the wrong route and was not in the right vicinity. Again, kind of like the broadcaster said, JMO was in the facility, but he wasn't in the vicinity. Which I thought that was actually kind of impressive, kind of coming up with that on the fly. But hey, you know what? Somebody's got to do it. That was nice for the announcers in the game. But again, it wasn't just Jared Goff. It wasn't the wide receivers. Again, let's take a look at the offensive line. Penei Sewell got called for 2 holding penalties, and one of them was very, very blatant. Like, the offense just didn't do a very good job. It was very obvious at the very beginning of the game, and by the time we got to the end of the game, the Lions' offense was really just stat padding, and they were trying to score some points to make it look a little bit more respectable, which, let's be fair and honest, they didn't do. The Lions' offense just simply could not do anything against this Baltimore Ravens defense. And that to me is a huge disappointment because it's like, listen, I thought the Lions could go out there like they had against the Bucs, and they didn't. And I'm going to say this right now. The Lions fans, I myself, we have to eat our crow. Or in this case, we have to eat our Raven because the Ravens came out there and they smacked us in the mouth. And all trash talking, all freaking, anything they want to say to us Lions fans, myself included, we deserve. Because you know what? I thought we were going to do a lot better, and the Lions went out there and almost completely laid a goose egg. So that's the offensive side of the ball. Now, the defense. I'm going to say this right now. To every freaking Lions fan that wanted to tell me, David, you need to eat your crow. David, you need to retract your statement about Aaron Glenn. David, you need to do this about Aaron Glenn because of that video that I made way back in the beginning, and I'm going to put that link back up at the top so that way you guys can go back and watch it. I'm going to say this right now. Did I or did I not call that this is exactly what was going to happen? I literally said, this is what Aaron Glenn does. He literally does the exact same thing every damn time. He will get that defense playing very well for a couple of games, and then we have ourselves a game like this where everything just falls apart. We saw it last year when the defense started playing a little better, and I'm going to say that again, a little better. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up the stats for last year's last 10 games of the Lions defense because a lot of people wanted to keep contesting with me if the Lions defense made a massive change in those last 10 games. It did not. I still have the statistics. I'm going to put them up here. But let's think about this. Last 10 games last year, the Lions defense started playing a little bit better, and then we played against the Panthers and everything fell apart. Then we go to this year. The Lions, for 5 straight games, their defense plays absolutely great. And then this game completely, utterly, just totally falls apart. When you're down 28-0 at the halftime period and there's nothing you can do to stop the opposing offense, you know your defense has failed. But here's where it gets really, really bad. This is where it gets totally unacceptable, like I said in that previous episode. If the analysts can see it after I'm seeing it, you know how bad it is. Aaron Glenn kept running the exact same damn zone defense almost the entire game because he was more concerned about freaking Lamar Jackson scrambling all over the field than the fact that, Lamar Jackson is throwing the ball all over us because, oh, that's right, Lamar Jackson finished with 357 passing yards. Think about that. I've made quite a couple of jokes at Lamar Jackson's expense. I'm not going to make any today because the guy that I thought was more of a running back that played quarterback, he played like a quarterback today. He played like an MVP caliber quarterback. Lamar Jackson finished today's game with 21 completions out of 27 attempts. That's a 77.7 completion percentage rate, folks. He had 357 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, and almost finished with a perfect passer rating against our defense. And that was because Aaron Glenn kept running the same damn pitiful zone defense. It was so bad, you would literally see Lamar Jackson throw the ball, and then when it got to the wide receiver, there were no Lions defenders anywhere around those guys. It happened time and time and time again. And the reason why is because Aaron Glenn was trying to make sure that Lamar Jackson didn't run all over us. Okay, fine. You kind of held Lamar Jackson in that aspect a little bit. But here's the problem. After a while, it became plainly obvious the Ravens were not going to use Lamar Jackson to run the ball. They were trying to throw the ball with him. So I would like to understand why, even after halftime, when we're down 28-0, the freaking Ravens continue to score on us throwing the ball, and you still don't change anything. Again, this goes back to what I used to say on my old channel. This goes back to what I said in the previous video. Aaron Glenn is stubborn as hell, and he refuses to change even though when he knows he's wrong. It's quite plainly obvious. Your zone defense is not working. Change it the hell up. Do something. Make an adjustment. Because think about this, folks. Truly think about how bad this is. Not only did we make Lamar Jackson look like the MVP caliber quarterback he was way back in the beginning of his career, think about this, folks. Until today, Lamar Jackson hadn't thrown over 250 yards in a game on the season. And we're almost halfway into the season. But yet against the Lions' top 10 defense that all these people have been talking about, myself included, he comes out and he surpasses his previous high by almost 160-70 yards. So there's that embarrassment. Then think about this as well. This is the first game on the season that the Ravens have actually put up 30 points or more. First game on the season against our top 10 defense, supposedly. And then it gets even better. Think about this one, folks. This is also the first game that the Lions have had since the Panthers where we've been absolutely embarrassed. And I'm talking about the Panthers game last year, not this year. Last year against the Panthers, even though the score looks a lot better than what it was, we lost 37-23. Anybody who watched that game, it was plainly obvious by halftime the Lions were not going to win it no matter what we did in the second half, and that's exactly what happened. But if you want to talk about the worst game the Lions have had points-wise in terms of separation, this is the worst game the Lions have had since they lost against the Patriots 29-0 in Week 5 of last year. And we did this against the Ravens. And that's not saying negatively about the Ravens. The Ravens deserve all the praise they get this year, and I give them all the praise they got for this game. But think about this. This is how bad Aaron Glenn is at times. Because, again, the consistency factor. What I said in my previous episode still remains here. I wanted to see consistency. And this is exactly what I was talking about. Aaron Glenn, 3, 4, 5 games, everything looks great. And then we have a game like this and everything falls apart. It's just like freaking putting hell on a handbasket and it just implodes. This is what I'm talking about. So to anybody who wanted to say that I should apologize for what I said against Aaron Glenn, this is right here why I wasn't going to do it. Because I knew something like this was going to happen. And it doesn't matter now for the rest of the season, whatever Aaron Glenn pulls out of his hat, this is going to be my evidence that says Aaron Glenn still has not figured out to get this defense working. Because when you go into a game where you have the ability to make a statement, this would have been a statement win if the Lions could have done it, and everything was going to be on the Lions defense stopping Lamar Jackson, and you pull out this type of performance, yeah, you deserve to get every ounce of freaking criticism from me and anybody else that wants to say so, because you utterly failed in your job, Aaron Glenn. No doubt about this at all. And think about this as well. This is the first game that the Lions defense, first and foremost, surrendered over 100 yards rushing, because we surrendered 146 yards rushing. So that has now been broken. But this is also the first game where the Lions not only surrendered over 100 yards rushing, but also over 350 yards passing on the year. So again, to anybody who wanted to say that I was wrong to call it Aaron Glenn, to anybody who wanted to say that I thought Aaron Glenn should be fired, I would love to hear you come up with a defense for Aaron Glenn right now. I really, really would. And I'm not trying to say that to be smug, but it's like after the last 4 or 5 weeks, so after the last month where I got constant comments that were telling me that I was wrong for what I said about Aaron Glenn, I'm just going to say this right now. I was proven right about Jared Goff back on DLF and also further into MCM. I've been proven right about almost everything that I've talked about when it comes to Jared Goff, Ben Johnson, and other aspects of the team. Trades, Brad Holmes, whatever the term you'd like to use. Now I've been proven right about Aaron Glenn. But here's what I'm going to say about this. It doesn't really matter about the fact that I was proven right, because here's what I can know and say for a fact. Aaron Glenn's never going to get fired by the Detroit Lions. Aaron Glenn's not going to get fired unless Sheila literally walks into Dan Campbell's office and forces him to fire him. Because again, Aaron Glenn and Dan Campbell are buddies. And again, if you go back to today's episode or today's post-game press conference when Dan Campbell was asked about the whole defensive thing, he didn't say it was a matter of scheme. He said it was a matter of effort, of execution. And as far as I'm concerned, that's once again protecting Aaron Glenn and saying, yeah, it wasn't my coach's fault as to why the Lions couldn't win. It was because we didn't go out and we didn't execute as the players should have executed. So again, not putting any blame on Aaron Glenn, putting the blame on himself, because he did say, I didn't get our players ready to play, but also pretty much saying the players didn't go out and execute the game plan. And it's plainly obvious. The game plan was never going to work because throughout the entirety of the game plan never changed. The game plan never worked at any point during the game on defense. Same thing with the offense. But again, the offense has been much more consistent over the last 2 years than the defense has ever been. So, that's my reaction. And I told you, I was going to make this quick. This is not my normal 20-minute video. This is like 15, 16 minutes, and we're done. So without further ado, I just want to say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM, Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage you all to watch the next episode or watch my live stream that I got coming out later today for the post-game reaction. I encourage you all to do one of these three things or all three of them. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past, you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and you not had a chance to do so, first and foremost, again, highly encourage you all to subscribe. But make sure once you subscribe, you hit that bell notification icon that's at the bottom of the page, so that way you never miss any more content that I push out. I also encourage you all, please, share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with anybody and everybody that you can. And with that, folks, I just want to say thank you all for tuning into another episode of Motor City Mania. Thank you all for everything that you do. Thank you all for your view, your support, your patronage. Hopefully I gained your subscription with today's episode. And I just want to say God bless. And until the next time we meet, which will be very shortly, I'll see you all in the next episode.